Hello, and welcome to another episode of Insurance Unlimited, a podcast looking at all things insurance, sponsored by the lovely team at Endava. Today, we're going to continue on our journey looking into the world of personal lines, with the ambition of trying to understand where the specialty world could learn lessons from the personal lines world and vice versa. And I'm today, I'll do that again. And today, again, I'm joined by our subject matter expert, Karen Houseago, who's got a fantastic background in personal lines. Karen's going to be asking the questions, allowing me to join in and give some perspectives of my London market actually journey and the claims journey that I've been on, and to see some areas where the specialty market can overlap with personal. So welcome, Karen, again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, come back for more after previous recordings.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Right, now our guest today is somebody that I've known for a few years now. So James Russell from esure joins us. James has got a fantastic background in insurance, and something that I think is really interesting is his background in the startup world, and also the fact that James always tries to sort of he's one of those people that's trying to adapt and change insurance for the better. So I've got a huge amount of respect for that. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for that intro.
That's fine. Karen, I'm going to hand over to you actually, and then I'm going to sit back and let the magic happen.
Magic. So James, I'm really interested in how you've kind of got to where you are. Can you give us a bit of background about your journey and how you've ended up in your current role?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently head of claims transformation at esure Group, which is a personal lines insurer based in the UK. I started my life in manufacturing, mainly in supply chain roles, but joined Norwich Union as was, or Aviva, about 25 odd years ago, and really got sucked into the world of insurance and what an amazing thing we do for people who want to protect the things that are important to them, and when the worst thing happens, actually have that sort of fourth emergency service that is there to help them. So I think for those of us that work in the industry, it gets under your skin and you're really passionate about it.
Yeah.
I did a range of roles at Aviva in supply chain, claims, commercial lines. I ran an internet auction business, which Norwich Union set up in '99 to sell off total loss vehicles, and that was probably gave me a flavour for how technology can really do transformative things, not only for our industry but also for customers as well. And that probably gave me the bug to keep going, following that route of where can technology really help make people's lives easier. And I don't mean that just as customers, but also for colleagues that serve those customers. I left Aviva in 2018 to launch a startup called Brisk, and it was specifically aimed at supporting small, medium-sized businesses who are still, in my opinion, very underserved as a segment of our economy. And it was, how can we actually bring the latest technology to help them to be more resilient, to manage risk, but in their eyes, it's just keep their business going and give them access to financial services. We merged that business in 2021 with a fintech that provided embedded finance to help them with cash flow. So we were bringing risk management, insurance, and cash flow together as sort of a financial services package for small businesses. And then I joined esure in 2021 because, frankly, I love their mission, that they're on a mission to fix insurance for good, and that really resonated with my passion to, as I said, make lives easier for customers. And let's face it, insurance has got a lot of modernization it's still got to make. And I still know that there's huge amounts that we can go after to really deliver the type of service that we all want to be proud of.
It's really interesting, isn't it, James? Because we met when you were at Brisk, and I was trying to do something very different, very similar, sorry, from a specialty lines perspective, but this kind of reverse engineering of insurance. How do we bring the products and services first as the thing that we're selling, and almost embed the insurance in as a not a hidden sale, but obviously it's not the thing people wake up in the morning and are desperate to buy. You've got much more chance of engaging the customer if you're providing a service that they can use every day. But yeah, it's great. I mean, I like the fact you've got that entrepreneurial itch as well.
Yeah, and I don't think my sorry, I'll start again. I don't think my wife likes the fact I've got this entrepreneurial itch, because she would just like me to have a kind of a steady, normal day job. But I think once you've got that kind of desire to keep trying to make things better, it's hard to shake off.
Yeah,
That's so
definitely.
infectious, though. I think I've never thought of insurance as the fourth emergency service, though. It's a great way to put it. I feel like I want to sit you in front of every customer in the UK and just be like, this is it, you know, help us help you.
Yeah.
But it's a really like refreshing way of looking at it.
Well, I remember I worked at the RAC for a while, and when a practice at the RAC was everyone had to spend a day on the road with one of the engineers, just so that we really understood what our frontline people do. And I remember I spent some time in one of the centres, and I kind of with trepidation asked the lady I was sat with. I said, "Oh, so, you know, how do you find your job then?" She goes, "I love it." She goes, "If I've had the worst morning and I can't get the kids off to school," she goes, "I know I'm going to leave here at the end of a shift and I'll have helped maybe 40 customers at whether they put diesel into their petrol car or, you know, they've run out of fuel. I know that I'll have helped all those people." And she goes, "What an amazing job to then go home and to think I've helped all those people." And I
Yeah.
just thought, wow, what an amazing kind of mindset and sense of energy to take into that role, but also to get from, you know, the massive kind of social purpose that we have.
It's a great idea, though, getting close to your customers. I used to do it at LV as well, and it was encouraged around the business to just go and listen to calls, like understand what our customers are saying, what's their pain points, how can we help them, because that just has a knock-on effect to everything you do across the business.
Yeah, and it's something that I learned at Aviva, that they went through a big revolution called systems thinking, and for people like me, it was really transformational, because instead of having that very kind of slightly old-fashioned top-down waterfall sort of way of doing things, like, oh, we'll just find some requirements and then we'll go and build it for 6 months in technology world, and then we'll give it to our front line and expect them to go, "Oh wow, isn't it amazing?" Invariably, you know, half of what you built they probably don't actually use. The other half they do use probably isn't working exactly as they want. So hence agile software has come to the fore, which I love. But that combined with the systems thinking methodology that actually put the people that serve the customer at the top of your organization, and everyone else is there to serve them. And that includes people like me that are responsible for large transformation programs. They're the people we've got to give the tools to so that they can do amazing things for our customers. And I think just turning things on its head like that can be so powerful.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head on one of the first major differences between personal lines and commercial or specialty, as we call it. We're so far away from our clients that it's very difficult for us to put ourselves into their mindset and show that empathy, because in 99% of those occasions, the client is the broker. We can absolutely put ourselves in their perspective, but it's very different, isn't it? You know, being able to, as a claims practitioner, I think they get the closest, so that they can go home and say, look, I've helped someone today. I've helped a business stay afloat. I've helped them with their cash flow. I've helped them with their legal expenses or whatever recovery it was. Actually, I think the underwriters don't get that satisfaction as much. I think it's about deal making.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some instances you'll get that, but I remember
Yeah.
when I was working commercial lines with Brisk and Aviva as well, you will get some brokers. If I think from a claims point of view, you'll have a large loss where you've got a collaboration that's happening between the loss adjuster, the client. It might be the fleet manager. It might be the facilities manager at the property. You've got maybe 4 or 5 different parties all collaborating and engaging to sort out a claim and a situation. So there are instances where that collaboration happens, and it happens as well at the underwriting stage. I think where it can get in the way is, I remember cases where you'd have a liability claims handler who wanted to talk to the company owner, the client, to understand what were the circumstances around an alleged slip, and actually the broker would intervene and say, no, I don't want you talking to the end client. And it was like,
happens all the time.
How can we get past that sort of fear? Because actually what we're trying to do is to collaborate on A, making sure that we settle the claim accurately, but B, try and prevent that claim from happening again.
I think that's an inherent problem at the heart of the market, and I can't see an outcome for it very quickly, because I think inherently brokers are deal makers and underwriters are trained to be deal makers, and they're always fighting for superiority. And this point about who owns the customer is always up for debate. Karen and I always talk about this. I was like, you're so lucky in personal lines. You could pick up the phone to your clients. You've got their email address. I mean, you can ask a broker for a client's email address at I don't know, Google or Amazon, the chief risk officer, you've got zero chance, probably of them providing it. You've got to elbow them out of the way. And I'm exaggerating, but it is tough.
And I remember that. I'm smiling because of that who owns the customer point. I remember,
yeah.
I can't remember the scenario, but having that conversation in front of a mid-market client, they just sort of shrugged and went, "No one owns me. What are you guys talking about?" And it's
I'm not a dog.
yeah, and it's like I remember that particular client. He was saying, "Look, I've got a number of companies, organizations that serve me from a financial services point of view, from my bank, my accountant, my advisor, all these different people, my broker." He goes, "I want you all to be pulling in the same direction with my interest at the heart." And actually, really interesting from a sort of a proposition evolution. Brisk started out as being like an app to help the small business, but actually it evolved into being something that was more used by the accountant and the broker, because they recognized that app actually could help them better service their clients. And so we ended up having, and it got quite complex at the end, but you'd have the small business would have permission, but they could then also invite their accountant or their broker to actually participate in it. So if there was new information that was pertinent to the business, the broker would get the tip off and the alert to say, actually, this business is now trading overseas, so actually you need to adjust their cover to make sure that they're covered. Just little things that
Amazing.
without that, why wait for the annual renewal to get that bit of information?
Yeah, this is why we always, we haven't got off the first question yet. This is why we always end up talking about this stuff, because I think that's exactly my perspective of how we need to evolve the insurance market globally to service the customer. The customers are getting the raw end of the deal because we can't get out of our own way, really, and help them. So, but I'm going to shut up, Karen, and let you get on to question 2.
So James, what do you think is the biggest misconception you hear about the personal lines business?
The biggest misconception I hear, actually, especially in personal lines, and I compare this to commercial lines. So in commercial lines, I think there's a much better reputation with the commercial client. They recognise the value that insurance has, and providing the broker and the insurer play nicely together, it's not a grudge purchase. It's something they really see value in. I think in personal lines, the biggest misconception is that personal lines insurance don't care. They just take the money. They don't hear from you, and they'll try and find ways to wriggle out of the claim. And actually, I've worked for a huge number of different personal lines insurers, but Karen, you've mentioned LV. The vast majority of personal lines insurers out there absolutely want to do the right thing by the customer. We recognize that the customer has bought a contract, and if a claim happens and it's covered, then it's our duty to settle that as quickly and as painlessly as possible. I think what gets in the way is many insurers, including esure, still find it hard to deliver that level of service that's on a par with other retail brands. And I think that's a really high bar that we've all got to work really, really hard to get to, because it shouldn't be that statistically insurers are sort of in that trust rankings, sort of down there with estate agents. We're the fourth emergency service. We should be right up there. People entrust their savings, their health, their property, their car with us, their livelihoods. That it's an open door for trust. So that really frustrates me.
Do you think that's because you're buying a promise, aren't you, rather than something tangible? So when you've compared it to the retail market, you're actually buying a thing and you get it, so you can see what you're buying. And unless you claim, you don't necessarily get anything other than a nice warm fuzzy feeling that they're going to catch me if I fall. So I think it's really difficult from a customer point of view. How do I trust you? And actually, I'm not really getting anything back other than a promise. And then you've got the likes of the FCA stepping in. So I think there's definitely a gap there between insurers want to help. They're there. You look at most strategies and it's got customer at the heart, literally, the operations, everything else, commercial boxes around it, customer is at the heart. Yet that doesn't seem to be resonating with the customer.
And I think, I talked about roadside rescue earlier. My data will be a bit out of date now, but certainly when I worked at the RAC, if customers had a claim, that was the best sales mechanism to get them to be loyal and buy roadside rescue. So it was something like an 80% of claimants would go on to take it out, to the point where I think at certain points, even if a customer rang in to say, I'm at the roadside but I don't have cover, we would still go and help them, because A, it was the right thing to do, and B, it eight times out of 10 that would end up in them becoming a really loyal customer. I wonder if we could say the same thing about in claims and in personal lines insurance at the moment.
That's really interesting, that perspective. I worked for a very large insurer beforehand, and actually, I remember a cyber client having a breach, and actually they weren't covered, and they, but the claims adjuster went out of his way to introduce into all of the third parties we used to negotiate some discounts for the forensic experts, for the credit monitoring experts, because he said they're in need. Like, they have had a breach, right? It's the most stressful experience they'll probably go through in their career. And I just thought that was such a fantastic example of good client service, right? And I'm pretty sure that client would have renewed or probably bought the coverage that they should have had the next year with that insurer, because why wouldn't you? And I was talking yesterday to Karen about a brilliant experience I had with a company that both of you have worked for or with. And it was great. They rang me and said, you haven't provided the details. We can't write a check unless you provide these details. And I was like, oh God, sorry, I forgot. But you never would have thought that 10, 15 years ago, because you just had this bad perception about experience. I do think it's getting better, and I do think that people realise it's the one chance to differentiate and create stickier relationships.
Maybe it's the opt-out thing with marketing as well, because I think 10, 15 years ago, when it was direct mail was your main marketing and you got letters and letters through the door, and now there's the opportunity to opt out. So don't know if there's maybe a bit of negative feeling from that, because actually a lot of customers will say, opt me out of marketing, so the insurers don't get that chance to speak to their customers and prove that they have good information to provide them through the tenure of their policy. So it's re-establishing that warmth and that relationship, but there's almost a barrier to doing it.
But Karen, do you remember a few weeks ago I was talking about there was a windstorm in the UK, and my insurer sent me a text message, and I thought that's a bit strange, and it said, this storm's coming, we can see where you live, we can see what's covered, can you secure your fence panels, they must have known, James, that I lived in Essex, because they were like, can you secure your hot tub cover, and it was
just your lifestyle.
It's just my lifestyle, but it was brilliant, and I was like, oh my God, why are we not doing this in specialty? And we do this kind of thought leadership, but it was a very clear kind of risk management kind of, these are the tasks you need to do, use your brain. But actually I wouldn't have done it. It's things like move your car away from the house a little bit because tiles might fall off the roof and hit your car. Didn't think to do that, right? So I thought that was brilliant.
And in specialty lines, I mean, I remember at the startup incubator where I was in 2018, there was another startup that was far more advanced than we were, but it had sensors in things like large greenhouses that were growing high-end, expensive fruit and vegetables. But if the temperature or the humidity changed outside of a tolerance, that
parametric type stuff.
Exactly. But it wasn't even parametric. It was alerting them to say, you need to intervene, otherwise the crop will be damaged. So it was preventing the claim from happening, and I love that.
And that's where insurers, I think, have the absolute opportunities to differentiate in specifically around claims and thought leadership. And we talk a lot about smarter underwriting. I think that's what it is. It's it's using technology to be smarter, but you're still kind of underwriting the risk.
I think from a customer point of view, though, we like to talk to insurers. Do you think there's a danger with in insurance, the margins have been tighter and tighter, like the last year, 18 months, because of claims inflation, etc. I think insurers are looking at how do they get a better return. So is automation the answer? But is automation going to eradicate our touch points with clients?
I think so. Automation, it's been around for decades, hasn't it? In whatever industry, centuries, and whatever industry you want to consider. And I think that the maxim remains true today, which is, it can help you to do the job better, but you've got to keep fundamentally remembering who it is we're serving. And actually, if automation can eliminate some activity that frees up humans to go and do more value-adding work, fantastic. But we shouldn't just automate stuff for automation's sake, and I think that's where we get too carried away with it. The approach that I'm a big fan of is focus on what the customer actually values and strip away the stuff that they don't, and then you can then layer on technology and automation to again help the human. So I liken it a bit to an air traffic controller, and you think of modern day pilots, they aren't hands-on flying the plane the whole time, but actually an air traffic controller is monitoring planes going through their airspace, and actually whether it's from an underwriting point of view, an automated underwriting, or straight through processing claims, there'll be some scenarios, some cases, some claims where the human doesn't need to get involved, but actually they can use data science to sort of track the health of those claims as it's moving through their airspace, and then intervene on those outliers. And I think that's where automation, data science can really help strip away the stuff where a human can't add value, and actually get to the things that a human just hasn't got capacity to get to. We hear about the definition of AI is it's the things that a human could do, but they just haven't got the capacity to go through all of those medical scans, etc. So actually, if AI can help us spot where things go wrong, and let's face it, back to the trust thing, customers probably have a negative perception of insurance because of when things go wrong, and too many things go wrong. Well, if AI and technology can help us reduce the number of things that go wrong in something as complex as a claim, that's it's got to improve our perception of customers. B, it's going to take out cost for everyone, and therefore we can be more efficient, we can be more competitive.
And are you seeing that happening in the personal lines industry? Sorry.
Absolutely. I mean, esure have gone through a complete root and branch transformation, massive investment in new technology. They've absolutely got that platform now that enables them to do all the things I've just talked about. The next challenge for us is to actually get it working and get the human involved in that, so that they can go from being a phenomenal pilot of a pretty basic aeroplane to actually something that is far more high tech. And that's what we're currently doing at the moment.
I really like that analogy. I wrote an article last month talking about people's distrust of AI, and I think we used to use this word algorithmic underwriting or bionic, and it was quite offensive. It's effectively, I'm going to take your arms and legs off, and we just want you for your brain. But actually, the word co-pilot is quite a clever word, right? Because we associate it with flying in a plane. We've all been doing it for years. There's always been a co-pilot. We knew the plane was flying itself, and we all trust that. Touch wood, it doesn't go wrong very, very often. And so I think this word co-pilot, I think, is really useful. And if you think about that, I like that in the underwriting process and in the claims process. And I saw a brilliant proof of concept the other day of a co-pilot listening on a client's call, and it was doing it was basically saying, the client seems stressed, you need to show some empathy. The client hasn't given you their location yet. Please ask for location. And it was directing the handler through the script, but doing it in a way where it wasn't cutting into the conversation and we wasn't on a form. And I thought that's where AI really adds value. We've still got the human where it matters, but we've got the automation where we can kind of happening before it.
And we've got to, and this thing will evolve. We've got to walk before we can run. I remember looking at automating broker submissions years ago, and actually
we're still trying to do it.
We're still trying to do it, but this was like 10, 12 years ago, but it would mistake the correspondence address with the risk address, and so you were then underwriting the property that was actually the broker's address. And it was just like, no. But again, it wasn't trained. It wasn't clever enough to recognize the risk address. And I think there are other examples. There was one the other day that I came across where someone would have said, "Oh, it's a real pain in the neck." The AI would have said, "Oh, they have a neck injury." And it's like, no, it's a figure of speech. So again, it's going to take time for the AI to sort of detect the nuances and the differences.
It's moved on. I mean, just in the last 2 years, it's moved on. So it has moved on, but I think the way we're using it has moved on. I think that's why we're building more trust because of the likes of ChatGPT. But I'm definitely seeing more use cases for AI in claims than I am anywhere. I mean, obviously, all the underwriters are still trying to triage those submissions and be more efficient. But actually, I think claims is where it's at, because claims is just a lot of operational processes with a lot of human touch points. So there's a lot of value there. At the end of the day, though, I really worry about us losing our empathy. And I think insurance companies have got to be very, very clear on when they force a consumer down a form chatbot route and when they pick up the phone when they're needed.
And let's face it, it is still very blunt, and you can use the term omni-channel, but either way, it's about having that flexibility and fluidity that the customer almost doesn't detect. And
Yeah.
it still frustrates me as someone that works in this space that when I'm a customer and I'm using a chatbot, actually I know that I'm going to go around a whole doom loop of questions. So can I just cut through and speak to an agent, please? Because that'd save us all a load of time. And I think there's a long way still to go with
great
that sort of intersection between chatbot, live chat, assisted chat, and voice to voice.
I've got a 19-year-old daughter who loves chatbots because she doesn't have to speak to a human, but even she's picks up the phone occasionally and is getting more used to it, because I think she gets just as frustrated as the rest of us not getting the answers quick enough. I mean, she's even more impatient than I am, which is saying something.
So with that in mind, do you think customer expectations have changed in the same way that our ability to service customers has?
I think customer expectations have absolutely changed, and I'd say in kind of two ways. One is just that general level of expectation around serve me, and I think we can talk about Generation Z's coming through, and actually they don't want to talk to a machine. They don't want to talk to a face. They want to talk to a company that they really trust and they buy into. So there's so much more than just talking to, I don't know, a call center. It's got to be so much more than that. And Paul, you talked about empathy earlier. It's bringing that empathy in, but it's also allowing the customer to self-serve, because they don't need to go and have a 10-minute chat with someone. If it's just you asked, I know I had to get the number plate of the third-party vehicle that was involved in my accident, so I've just uploaded it, done. I didn't want to have to call and go through IVR and security just to do that. So there'll be horses for courses. There'll be times when absolutely a customer is transactional, but there'll be times when the customer is thinking, actually, I'm not quite sure what I need to do here, or what happens if I do 100%. That. Have a quick conversation then.
I recently did something very stupid and put a nail through a pipe whilst pretending to do a good job at DIY, which I've never actually managed. And that was a time I was like, I really need to speak to a human quite quickly here, because my house is either going to flood, or I need to get it was freezing cold. We had no heating. And I get it. I was sent down a form. Eventually, I spoke to a human because the car. Actually, I didn't have the emergency cover, which was a bit stupid based on the fact that I work in insurance. And then, 2 years ago, I lost a gadget on holiday and claimed under my gadget insurance. I was more than happy just to fill out a form, submit my evidence, and let it go off into the ether. And I think what I want is a big red button on the website that says, "Just let me call you." And I know people will abuse it, but I think that's what my expectations are. I'm stressed. Something's happened, and look, it's just a house, it's just a pipe, and it's not the end of the world. But that was something more serious. The last thing I want is to be scraping around looking for a phone number or whatnot.
Like a bat phone.
Yeah, I want the full emergency service.
Is that what customer expectations are now? I need a bat phone.
or something or the live chat in the middle. I remember we went live with direct insurance solution years ago in a former company, and a lot of calls would come through with customers saying, that was really easy, I just want to check, am I actually on cover now, because that was just like so easy. And it was always
don't be too good is the answer.
But they just did because of their expectation levels before. They were completely wowed, but actually, did they need to call in, or would a quick live chat just to check, is this for real? Have I now got cover? And someone called Paul could say, yeah, you're good, I've got it. Maybe that would have been enough to give them that reassurance.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And we've spent years trying to replicate those advancements that you've made in personal lines into the sort of commercial insurance market. And you can do it for small cyber, small D&O, small FI, PI classes. You can actually start replicating some of that stuff, but there are nuances. And I spent my life trying to automate as much of these processes as I can. And then I had to buy PI insurance for my own business, and I still had to speak to a broker because there was a slight nuance on what we did. Activity types are always an issue. And I spoke to the broker. The broker said, "Yeah, we get it all the time. Absolutely, this is it. You're on cover. Not a problem. Put the phone down." And I thought that was a really good experience. But actually, when I think about it, they've probably lost money on that. on the first 3 months of my premium because it's cost them money to pick up the phone and speak to me. And yeah, I don't know. I just think there's still this gap of complication, or maybe we overcomplicate things, but there's still a gap on the service.
It was really interesting at Brisk. Some of the early adopter broker clients we had were brokers coming in saying, to be honest, I'm not profitable at the real small end of my portfolio, so I'm looking at increasing that threshold to actually focus on the more profitable end. But they said,
Yep.
but some of these businesses are local to me. They see me as the local broker. I want to service them. And actually, they were saying, if data and technology can mean that I can still fulfill my duties as a broker and give them the right advice, but it means I can use data and technology to do that in a more efficient way, then great. I've almost got a kind of a hybrid cybernetic solution that is combining human and technology to be able to service the smaller businesses.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about, off tangent slightly, but if you think about in Europe, there aren't aggregators, are there? And there aren't, people don't really buy as much online. There are a few, aren't there? But not as much. They're not as prevalent as the UK. But so all those businesses are it's a local broker in the town hand cranking that business through.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And a lot of them will lose money in the early years on the basis that they'll get bigger and they can then recoup that. But
this is the sort of stuff that keeps me up at night. I'm such an insurance geek. I'll be laying awake tonight, researching the European PCWs, the price comparison websites. Sorry, Karen.
So if you could click your fingers then, what one thing would you provide to customers in their time of need?
I'm going to go with that point of making a claim, because I think it's one of the most complex and most stressful points of owning insurance. So if I could click my fingers, it would be immediate reassurance that they are covered and we're here for them. I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is just clear instructions of what to do next for their specific circumstance. It's just those two things that sound so simple to say, but they are at the root of a lot of what we've talked about already. And they're at the start of just getting the claim on the right track from day one.
Do you think it's the same in commercial, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about expectation management, right? And we talked about this before. Whether it's a commercial claim or a personal claim, people want their expectations to be managed. They want to know how complex it's going to be, what the timelines are. Is there any slight doubt in your mind on whether I'm covered or not covered? I think we've got to start being more upfront about this is a nasty one. And it might be supply chain. It might be, look, it's a Tesla. We've got a real problem with Tesla bumpers at the moment, and therefore, it's going to take some time. But don't worry, we'll sort it out. All the way through to supply chain in global property. So I think we've got to get better at the data that tells us that informs us that, so that when at the point of claim, you can sort of look it up on the system, and the system's saying, big red amber light, or red light, sorry, saying this is a bit nasty. Can you just manage the client?
Yeah, I think it's that ongoing communication piece as well. I need to file a claim tomorrow because my cat is having an operation, and I want to know, where am I in this journey? So I'm going to file it tomorrow. I'm hoping for frequent communication until my claim is paid. I don't know if I'm going to get it, but I'm hopeful. But that's my expectation, because you pay quite a lot for, your pet insurance is generally as much as your car insurance. So it'll be very interesting what the process I go through is.
Yeah, we'll have to dovetail on that. I think I've got one coming as well.
Really?
We're not very good, are we? We're on an insurance podcast, and we both got claims going on. But yeah, I think I do think it's interesting. I always tell a story where I remortgaged 4 years ago, and it was a really good experience, and I really wasn't expecting it. Like, from the minute I submitted the forms, there was a website which I could go on, and it told me, you haven't uploaded your passport, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. And like, I'm busy, I need someone constantly give me that information. And all I had to do at any time was log into this website. It told me where I was at the stage, and I thought, that's what we need that's what we need for insurance. And James, I'm not going to ask whether that's the strategy at esure, but I just want my expectations managed. I come back to that point.
I think it's a really good example. And at esure, we've had to be brave, because the whole kind of almost holy grail of you want to be able to give customers a status on what stage their claim's at, and B, most importantly, when's it going to be ready. And it's really hard to predict when you've got supply chain delays. So back to expectation management, as insurers, we're almost sort of worried about saying anything in case we get it wrong and then we've got other problems. And I think we've got to be brave. And we did something over the Christmas period and released it in January, which was really simple. So we use for all of our network of repair garages, we use a sort of an interface called Integral, and they have a solution that allows you to track your claims. So we just literally, when customer went on to the live chat and said, can I have a status update on my claim? If we can see that the claim is with the repairer, then we know that there's no point in directing them to a claims handler, because the claims handler is going to go, I'll just ring the garage and find out for you. So we link them to the Integral repair tracker, and the customers can now self-serve and just get the status update on their claim. Now,
that's brilliant.
Now, I'm sure there will be evolutions that can make that better with fewer clicks for the customer. But let's not be scared to put something out there, and it's with the right intention to help the customer, and we'll learn from it. And I think as insurers, we've just got to be a lot braver and learn from the world of startups and retailers who will try and do these things, as long as it's in the customer's interest and it's there to help the customer. Then I think we're coming from a place of good intent.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The hard, like we know, I've been in technology for many years. The hardest step is the first one, right? It's the being brave to actually test, have that experiment, see if it works, and then get it live. I think lots of things. Bravery is a really good point there. That's wonderful. Karen, have we got any more questions for our esteemed guest? We've rattled through that. That's very good.
We've done them all.
I've loved the conversation. It's been great. It's kind of it's like that person I met at the REC that day. It kind of reinvigorates you, reignites the passion. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
We believe. So thank you very much for giving us your time, James. We will catch up soon, and thank you. And Karen, thank you for hosting and asking the questions again.
Pleasure. Thank you both.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much.